Hey guys, what's up there? This is Tariq, and in this video we'll talk about some fundamental concepts about economics. So we're going to talk about book 2 from Wealth of Nations, which is written by Adam Smith, the father of economics. Let's get started. So before we start, I'll ask you one question. Can you tell me, why is this piece of paper so important to you? This is money, right? Why is this so important? Like, why can you go outside and buy anything from it? It's just a piece of paper. If you don't know the answer, don't worry. By the end of my video, I'll be talking about two different things, capital and money. So first, let's talk about the difference between them. So money is a tool which is used for easy trading and exchange. Money makes our life easier by making something which everyone desires equally. Back in old days, people used to trade raw materials with other things. This way of trade was known as barter. If a butcher wanted to buy a sword from a blacksmith, then he had to offer him something in return. But a butcher only has meat. But what if the blacksmith doesn't want meat from the butcher? Then the trade wasn't successful because two different people desired two different things. So money made an easier medium for everyone to get together and trade easily. So money is only a tool of exchange, a highway that helps get the nation's product to the market, but produces nothing by itself. So real wealth resides in what the money or the coin can actually buy. So Smith also talks about some negative aspects of the money. Smith says that banks have a temptation to print more money, then they can actually back it up by gold or something, which is bad for the economy, because if the banks decides to print more money, then people will get money easily and there will be no worth of the money. So it's just going to be a piece of paper, but you won't be able to buy anything from it basically. So this can create inflation, and Smith gives an example of the Scottish bank crisis back in his days, and the same thing happened. The banks decided to print more money, which caused the worth of the money to go down. So capital, on the other hand, is the actual product or a thing which actually has worth. These are the things which we produce, and we sell these to get the money, and the money can buy these things. So this is called capital. This brings us to our next point, different types of capital. So there are two basic types of capital, fixed capital and circulating capital. So number one, fixed capital. Fixed capital is a tool or a machine which is used to make the product. It does not take a part in the production itself, meaning it remains the same before the production and after the production, though it helps the production make easier or better. So basically it can increase the worth of the capital, but it does not take a part in the actual production, meaning it does not change during the production. So an example can be tools, machineries which are used to produce things. All these examples are fixed capital. Circulating capital, on the other hand, is a capital that circulates. Yeah, that's it. It circulates. So this capital is always moving around in the market, and it does not turn up into actual money unless the owner cashes it. So for example, if I decide to buy like a box of grapes, and then I decide to go somewhere else and trade it for watermelons, then I decide to cash my watermelon by selling them at a higher price. This is a type of circulating capital because it's changing types and it goes around the market. So circulating capital can be used to produce more capital or money as it goes through the market. Stocks, shares, your money, and capital in a trade are all examples of circulating capital. Now, our next point is different types of labor. We'll talk about how we can increase the value of our capital, which everyone wants. We want to increase the value of our capital, right? So Smith talks about two different types of labor, productive labor and unproductive labor. So let's talk about them. So before we talk about these labors, I would like to make one thing clear. Don't think about productive labor as good labor and unproductive labor as bad labor. We use these words differently in our daily life and compared to how Smith uses it in his book. So don't forget everything about productive and unproductive words, okay? You don't know anything about that. Don't judge a book by its cover. You can judge this one though, like it's SAT. So, productive labor adds value to a product. It increases the value of the product. If an effort of a person is fixed for an investment, then this is called productive labor. For example, if I hire 10 Rabbanis are our imaginary workers. So if I hire 10 Rabbanis to work in my factory, then this is actually productive labor, because as time passes, I'll get richer because the Rabbanis will be actually working in my factory and increasing the worth of the capital I already have. And the services gained by the productive labor last longer compared to unproductive labor. An example of productive labor will be investing money in something. This is also productive labor because your money is actually acting as a labor and it's actually working, because your money is the investment and in the future you can earn more money. So basically you're increasing the worth of your capital. So now we're going to talk about the second type of labor, which is known as unproductive labor. So Smith calls this as unproductive labor because it doesn't actually increases the worth of your capital. So for example, if I hire 4 Rabbanis to work for me, but not work in a factory, to serve me. If I hire Rabbanis to serve me, to clean my house, to cook food for me, to feed me, then all this is unproductive labor, because this doesn't actually help me get richer or increase the worth of my capital I already have. So Smith takes this idea to a bigger level by explaining how some countries are richer than others. So for example, if you have a rich country, but the people in that country are not doing productive labor and they're just sitting wasting their money on dumb things and on servants and all other things, then in the future the country might get poor. But on the other hand, if there's a poor country in the beginning but they're using their money and investing it in to gain more profit in the future, then they might get richer. In book 2, Smith talks about some things which we won't consider as unproductive labor, but according to Smith, teachers, lawyers, doctors, musicians, entertainers are all types of unproductive labor. According to him, all these professions don't really give a service which can last longer, and according to him, it's not an investment and it doesn't help the country get rich. But he doesn't say that these things are not important. He says that unproductive labor of this type is also important for a society, but it won't help you get richer. So Smith thinks that there should be a good ratio between unproductive labor and productive labor. I know the words productive and unproductive are kind of misleading in this case. Don't think of unproductive labor as bad labor. He just calls it unproductive because it doesn't actually create any physical capital itself. It gives benefits, it provides services for people, but it doesn't create actual money or capital itself. So the more money we spend on these unproductive labor, the less money we'll have for future. So this brings us to our next point, saving your money. Ever heard this statement? Save money and money will save you? Yeah, Smith strongly agrees with this statement, which I personally find very annoying. I mean, what's the point of saving money? Okay, never mind. Let's get back to the economic point of view. So Smith thinks that saving money is actually very important for an individual and a country itself. So the more money you have right now, the more money you will have for future to invest. And if you invest more money, as we talked, you will have more money in your life. So save money. So now let's talk about how our economy can be damaged. And before we start, I would just like to clear up one thing, that whenever Smith talks about the disadvantages, he talks in long term, like the effect of an action in long term. Okay, so many people think that this saving isn't a problem because no matter how much money you're spending, it's still circulating in the market. That's what some people think. They say that no matter how much money you spend, it's gonna go to the other person, and the other person is gonna spend his money. But according to Smith, this is still hurting our capital because we are eating our capital and wasting it on in the unproductive hands. So we are still damaging our economy because we're wasting money on things which won't help us in the future. And yeah, another way our economy can be damaged is through bad economic decisions by the government. So Smith points out the fact that our government wastes too much money into unproductive hands, like big armies, big courts, and Smith points out the fact that our government puts too much capital into unproductive hands, like a numerous and splendid court, the religious establishment, great fleets and armies. All these things increases the taxes for the people and makes it harder for the people to pay them. So the people have to eat into their capital to pay all these taxes, which is bad for them. Again, this does not affect the nation's gold and silver or the worth of it as a whole, but it still decreases the capital which people can put into their future. So our next point is interest. Interest, which Jose doesn't have in studies, but let's not talk about it. So in his book, Smith talks about how interest can benefit both the person who borrows the money and the person who lends the money. So Smith thinks that interest can benefit the whole economy, as people who borrow the money can also benefit from it, and as well as the people who give the money. So let's talk about why the borrower wants to borrow money and how he can take advantage of it. So why would you go to someone else for money? The reason you would go is that you might expect to do something with the money you're gonna borrow, which will help you make more money. And yeah, so the borrower is interested in what the money can make, not the money itself. Like for example, if I go to someone to borrow 10 reals, then I might invest my 10 reals into something and get maybe 20 reals in return. So then I can pay 10 reals to the person back, and maybe with interest like 13 reals. So we talked about how the borrower can benefit from it. Now we're going to talk about how the lender can benefit from the money he's going to give. So now let's talk about the people who lend their money. So their incentive is the money or the benefit they will get or the interest they will get from the borrower. So for example, if I lend someone money, then I'm interested in the money I will get back as an interest. So if I lend 10 reals, then in return I will get 13 reals. So I'm interested in the 3 extra reals I will get. If my money is sitting and doing nothing, I can lend more money to many people and earn profit like that. So Smith thinks that the more incentive there is for the people to lend their money, the better it is for the economy. As we have talked before, both the person who lends the money and the borrower can benefit from it. And when people lend money, there is more money in the market circulating compared to if people just sat on their money. And yeah, so it's better for the economy when the money flows in the market. It's not good if people just hold their money and don't let it flow. When there's more money in the market, the competition is high between the lenders who want to lend their money. So for example, if everyone wants to lend their money, then the rates of the interest will fall, which will benefit the borrowers more and the economy more. So the more money there is circulating in the economy, the better it is. So, but if people just sat on their money, then the interest rates will increase because there will be less people willing to lend their money and the interest rate will increase. But remember, in this case, we are not printing more money or we are not getting more money. We're just using the money we already have in the economy, but we're just circulating it around. So there's a difference, remember. Okay, so now let's talk about increasing the actual amount of the money we have. So some people say that increasing the gold or silver, which is the same as printing more money, is actually beneficial for the economy and the interest and it causes the interest rates to fall. But according to Smith, this is not true. He thinks that increasing the amount of the money or printing more money causes the value of the money to fall, which is bad. So when the value of the money goes down, it can also create inflation, and printing more money to circulate is not a good idea according to Smith. He thinks that printing more money has no effect other than increasing the prices of products. So like if you have more money, then the worth is gonna go down, but the prices are gonna go up, so it's not actually beneficial for the economy. True, there will be more money circulating, but the worth of the money will be low. So the last thing we're going to talk about is different types of ways we can use capital. So Smith tells us 4 different ways we can use capital. Number 1 is when people like farmers and fishermen produce raw material food, which is consumed as soon as it is produced by the people. And this type of raw material food is important for all the consumers. Number 2 is machinery and tools, which is used to produce these raw materials. Number 3 is transporting that raw material from one place to another, like cargo, ships, trucks, cars. All these are examples of transporting the product from one place to another. So the last thing we're going to talk about is selling the raw materials to the people, which is also known as retailing. So in retailing, the product is sold to the consumer in small quantities, which makes it easier for the consumer to buy stuff. For example, if the butcher wants to sell his meat, then he's going to sell it in small quantities for the consumers to buy it easily. According to Smith, there should be no regulations on the retailers, because competition itself is a restriction for the retailers. So Smith thinks that government should not put any more restrictions on them. And Smith also thinks that if there are no restrictions, then the retailer won't harm the consumer because of the competition itself. In his book, he gives an example of a bar. He says that people who go to drink are not forced by the bar to come and drink, but it's the other way around. The people who are working at the bar benefit from the people who come and drink. So he gives that example in his book. Lastly, Smith talks about how agriculture is very important for the economy and it benefits the most. Smith talks about America and how they focus on agriculture, which helped them become a stronger country. And Smith thinks that a country should focus on their agriculture because it's the best way to earn money. Smith also talks about how America imports stuff in the country which they cannot produce, and he thinks it's important for the country, and he thinks that if America stops trading, then their economy will get hurt. So Smith concludes book 2 by saying countries are better off if they try not to remain self-sufficient and raise trade barriers against each other. So this is what he says in the end, and he's trying to tell us that it's better for a country if they trade rather than if they try to produce everything in their country. So yeah, trade is important for you and for the country. Okay guys, so this is the end of the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I tried my best to explain everything as easily as possible. So yeah, thank you. Bye.